Just to preface, this video is not intended to offend anyone, it's merely a critique of the Pledge of Allegiance and why its removal will be beneficial. The Pledge of Allegiance. If you know it, you probably had no say in it being burned in the back of your mind. Now, I think the weirdest part about this pledge is how we were never taught about its origins in later adaptation, but there may be a reason why. The pledge needs to be abolished because of its prejudiced history, alienation of secular and religious ideologies, and destructive means of nationalist propaganda. The first draft of the pledge that was eventually adopted was written by Christian socialist Francis Bellamy. He originally wrote the pledge for the Youth's Companion magazine, and in 1892, it was adapted into a celebratory program for Columbus Day. Anthropologist Jack Eller states, "The pledge likely would have fallen into obscurity if not for the anti-immigrant anxiety that gripped the United States." To further emphasize the fears of Southern and Eastern European immigrants, in 1897, Bellamy wrote, "There are other races which we cannot assimilate without lowering our racial standard." The pledge now just seems to be an assimilation tool fueled by bigotry and nationalism. During the early 1900s, American students used to perform the old Roman salute. Fortunately, it was removed due to the rise of Nazi Germany, and we have all moved past this part of history. After World War I, Bellamy's pledge was considered the Pledge of Allegiance, and its continued support led to its official adoption in 1942 when Congress passed the U.S. Flag Code. Fast forward to the 1950s, fascism has lost its tyrannical flair. A new enemy has emerged.
We've been trying to reach you about your
Communism.
President Dwight D. Eisenhower witnessed the start of the Cold War and the rise of McCarthyism. Presbyterian pastor George Doherty had a major influence on Eisenhower, including "Under God" to the pledge in 1954. This was done in order to separate America from other godless communist countries. The fear of communism acted as a scapegoat for the nation to begin to blur the line between the separation of church and state. These amendments show that the pledge is no stranger to being adjusted to fit the current nationalist agenda. The "Under God" clause is just the tip of the iceberg. "Under God" and similar mottos like "In God We Trust" sparked many Supreme Court cases. Atheists attempt to move under God, but were often met with claims that God, in this case, embodied ceremonial deism. Lest we forget that God was originally added to rebrand the nation to unite under a religious figure. The pledge was causing all sorts of religious objections before "Under God" was even added. The most prominent example being in 1940 when an 11-year-old Jehovah's Witness abstained from the pledge because they believe saluting to the flag is forbidden in the Bible. Now dubbed Minersville School District versus Gobbidus, the Supreme Court ruled that schools had the right to expel students who abstained from the pledge. 3 years later, the Supreme Court reversed the decision in West Virginia Board of Education versus Barnett. This ruled that expulsion on the basis of abstention from the pledge is unconstitutional as it violates the First Amendment. Finally, kids are no longer forced to recite the pledge. Problem solved, right? Well, you see, the problem isn't that the pledge is no longer institutionally forced, it's actually the societal expectations that compel students to participate. Today, there are 2 states, Florida and Texas, that have statutes that require parental permission in order for children to abstain from the pledge. Professor of Law Caroline Corbin claims that these statutes are stripping away the constitutional rights of minors. She eloquently puts, "In short, the government uses its coercive power to persuade, not by virtue of the underlying worthiness of its message, but by controlling the messages that students are exposed to." Authentic patriotism does not require a daily pledge, and certainly should not ostracize those who refrain from it. It's as though the tax of being a child in the United States of America is to hold your hand over your heart and begrudgingly say for the 1,000th time, "I pledge allegiance to the flag." The pledge creates patriots. While this may be true, if the pledge really wanted to maximize nationalist output, it would change to allow for more individuals to be included. But by this logic, it would be hypocritical as the pledge has been adapted for over a century to fit current agendas. And I'm sure we wouldn't want something like "Under Elon" added to the pledge, which only continues to double down on this. Instead of doubling down and adding new things every other century to fit a current agenda, we should just get rid of it. The pledge is valuable to the classroom. According to my research, the pledge's only significant educational value is that it promotes skepticism and civic awareness surrounding its participation. Without the pledge, students may be less skeptical of a certain nationalist tradition, but that may be for the best. The only way to truly grant all students immunity from national propaganda is to get rid of it.
Please clap.